Good morning. Today is March 5th, and this episode is about the Quiet V. The Quiet V is part of my name. I say my name Skogard, but it's written Skovgard. And I barely even noticed the fact that there's a silent V in my name until somebody asked me how to say it. And names matter. We carry our names into every introduction we make, every signature, every handshake, and our names carry a history, reputation, the story we choose to live out in front of our neighbors. Our names basically define us. They are who we are. And that quiet V has become a metaphor for this campaign. This campaign is a movement not built on loud moments. It's built on quiet work, unseen tasks, volunteers driving extra miles, citizens who read and source before they share headlines, and people who are just sit down and talk over coffee or at the pub. The quiet work is what makes this whole campaign real. We only get one pair of eyes. We look out through our own experiences and try to understand what is happening around us, but our attention gets flooded all day long. If we're online, we're scrolling, we're skimming, we're hearing the same claims. Sometimes we sit down in front of the infotainment at night and we get the repetition over and over and over. And sometimes when we know something's not quite true, it starts to feel like the truth, even if the proof is missing. In 2024, I watched the reputation turn into certainty. Correcting bad claims was costly. We protect free speech. We do, and we must. But we also carry a responsibility to think carefully about what we accept and what we pass along as fact. This brings back to mind the boy who cried wolf story. And it was not just a story about one lie. It is a story about the collapse of trust, the moment the community no longer knows what to believe. It mirrors that story. We were taught that as children, and yet we see it playing out before us. Once the trust starts breaking, it's hard to repair. And trust is not logical. Trust is an emotional state. We want to believe, we want to trust people, and we invest our loyalty in people. Shifting that loyalty once it's invested is not easy because it can feel like we're admitting that we were wrong or losing part of our identity. That's human, and we're all human. So what do we do when we feel the water's getting rough? Well, I say we return to our foundation. Our founding documents were not written as pieces to display in a museum. The Declaration of Independence is the declaration of principles, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and how we perceive those. The Wyoming Constitution and the U.S. Constitution were not designed simply as guardrails, but they were designed to keep us from sliding into a tyranny that we've been there before. Our past shows us what happens when those type of things happen. And durable, and we can outlast the storm. These are the documents, they are our backdrop. Ignoring our backdrops is dangerous. When we treat the rule of law like an optional suggestion, we invite chaos. This campaign exists to refocus our attention on what matters: constitutional guardrails, the rule of law, and civic trust. The rule of this campaign is trust but verify. I've heard that over and over: trust but verify. Some folks talk about elections as if we trust or total suspicion. We do not. We must verify outcomes with rigorous methods without turning neighbors into enemy and distrusting the entire process. Verification is not a feeling. Verification must become a method, and the method must be shared with us all so that we understand it, not the distrust and the disloyalty. It's easy to tear things down. It's harder to build things. It's harder to build systems. We can count every ballot if we choose. It's possible. But full hand counts add time and human error. Machines count quickly and consistently. Machines also need audits and transparency because any tool can be misused without the proper guardrails. A good approach might start with a machine count for speed and consistency, followed by a statistical verification. Basically, we use a mathematical process to select ballots and hand check those ballots. If the verification shows anomalies outside the expected margin, then we escalate the review. We don't challenge the result without evidence. We follow the process and it protects us. That is a disciplined method. The discipline matters because distrust can be manufactured on purpose. And we introduce what I call the 7 by 7 rule as a warning sign. It's a way to recognize how suspicion gets built when proof is missing. And simply it is about repeating a claim false enough times across enough channels, and the familiarity starts to masquerade as evidence. So even if the mission or the statement is untrue, the goal is not necessarily to prove it. The goal is just to make it feel inevitable or that the truth no longer matters. That is how a rumor becomes conviction. When we aim this tactic at election administration, the damage is real. Trust breaks between clerks and volunteers and neighbors. Even when the count is correct, we can still get that feeling of distrust, and that is not good for a free society, because a free society cannot run on suspicion. A society that runs on trust is backed by verification, and this is where we reintroduce the quiet V. The quiet work that is the work that saves us. The quiet work looks like reading before sharing. It looks like asking for sources. It looks like pausing before outrage. It looks like valuing accuracy more than applause. The quiet V is part of the name that does not demand attention, but it changes the name. The quiet V is a part of our civic life that does not go viral, but it changes the future. So today, let's do the quiet work, you and I. Let's honor free speech. Let's honor truth. Protect our rights as we protect our responsibilities. Trust in one another and verify what we are told, because our loyalty belongs to what is true, not what is repeated. Verify with me. Join my movement at skullguard2026.org. Let's work together.